Wisconsin residents Jim Grant and Tish Hennigan were just another normal couple planning what they assumed would be a pleasantly memorable but relatively uneventful marriage ceremony. They had no reason to assume that conducting their marriage in the neighboring state of Minnesota was any cause for concern. While it was true that Minnesota had been drifting in a conservative direction in recent elections, it was still ranked as one of the most liberal states in the country, and conflicts between Minnesota and Wisconsin were normally resolved without bloodshed. A bumper sticker popular in Minnesota advises that friends don't let friends go to Wisconsin, for instance. But it is also true that Prairie Home Companion, a popular radio show that originates in Minnesota, once invited the governor of Wisconsin on as a guest. Jim and Tish had their eye on a delightful Minnesota recreation area named Farmers Community Park, so maybe this aspiration compromised their judgment. Jim recalls that they were far more concerned about the weather, however. Springtime weather in Minnesota can be violently capricious. Newly planted crops have been known to freeze overnight during a late spring blizzard. In other years, they can wilt under the merciless torment of an oppressive heat wave or be battered by tornado-force winds, torrential rain, and hailstones the size of golf balls. Jim and Tish selected their wedding date with these considerations in mind. The weekend of Memorial Day in 2006 seemed reasonably safe. By then, the brutal winter snows would have melted, but the hot, humid, mosquito-infested nightmare of midsummer was weeks down the road. Still, there are only so many precautions that a reasonable person can take. At some point, you have to just make your stand and hope for the best. Besides, Jim and Tish are unapologetic, glass-half-full optimists. Call it courage, call it recklessness. In any event, the die was cast. Once the wedding invitations were printed, there was no going back. That day got off to a bad start. Storm clouds threatened to drench the event, and in fact, by noon, rain was falling so hard that visibility on highways was down to about 50 feet. Then, shortly before the appointed hour, the rain stopped, the sky cleared, and a cool breeze swept in from the north.
It was a long time ago when I first gazed upon you.
The ceremony went off without a hitch, and Jim's performance of a song that he wrote for the occasion was flawless.
Now that we're together, a moment waiting to happen.
Nobody's camera malfunctioned, no cell phones or beepers diminished the sanctity of the moment, no fistfights erupted among the guests.
We got caught in the air.
On a scale of 1 to 10, this was a very tranquil and pleasant ceremony. Things were definitely looking up.
For a year we played pretend, questioning what we were after.
Once the ceremony was completed, the wedding party repaired to their lodgings on the other side of the river. In retrospect, it is easy to see that there were some early warning signs of trouble. The now famous bridge crossing incident, for instance. Some of the attendees groused at the time that something was awry, but like most residents of Wisconsin, they were too polite to say anything about it. We have acquired video footage from the bridge's security camera. As you can see, those early observations were well founded. Watch carefully as the guests return from the meadow.
I think they're part band, part actually pre-warm-up.
I know where to get my watercresses from.
Not all of them.
Yeah. Is this county? Have you been back? A lot of your. Have you been back?
Don't ask for a name.
I was just going to say, are you going to play something? No. You're not supposed to.
There.
Brandy and wine.
It seems as though someone from Minnesota has already infiltrated the wedding party. Let's play that back to get a better look. Other warning signs were harder to mistake. The accumulation of armaments, for instance. The stockpiling of provisions suitable for a prolonged siege. Smoke signals. And what was unmistakably a war dance. Then the Minnesotans unleashed their first volley. The ferocity of the attack was completely unexpected. The wedding guests, at first stunned, huddled in terror as the onslaught continued. Here we see some footage taken by a reconnaissance team that was sent out to evaluate the situation. There was no contingency plan for this turn of events. Jim Grant's assumption that life in Minnesota is pretty much just like that in Wisconsin was experiencing a severe reality check. Jim consulted Tish while she attended to her month-old grandson, Brody. They were joined by a guest named Doug, who had recently returned from a diplomatic mission to the other side of the river and was now able to deliver his report. Based upon information that Doug provided and a hasty appraisal of his own dwindling options, Jim decided to negotiate an armistice and sue for peace.
What does it say in your bag? New song, everyone have sex with Jeremy.
No. No, thank you.
Jim carried photographs of the village patriarch in Fountain City and the family's spiritual advisor. Jim proposed to offer the Minnesotans any leftover green bean almondine and macaroni salad from the reception dinner, a six-pack of designer microbrews, and first dibs on the remaining wedding cake. Secondary bargaining chips were an otter pelt, an eagle feather, and a shiny black rock that had been used in the marriage ceremony. The ace up his sleeve was a small supply of smoked wild turkey that Jim himself had downed during the last hunting season.
Well, let's do this last song, we'll tell everyone.
Armed with a peace treaty, Jim returned triumphant. Back at the reception, the wedding party celebrated their victory. And Jim recounted his exploits for the assembled guests in story and song. Lesson learned? To quote Jim Grant, the next time we get married, we'll do it closer to home.